I want to take a moment and can we try to think of any law that gives the government the power to make a decision.
I know what you're going to ask.
About a man's body.
No.
So as war breaks out in the Middle East and thousands of Americans continue to struggle with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, Kamala Harris yesterday decided to show how seriously she's taking the entire situation by going on the Call Her Daddy podcast. Now, if you don't know what Call Her Daddy is, consider yourself lucky. They used to be on Barstool Sports and basically got let go from there because the entire audience found them to be the least funny people on the entire internet. But now they have their own podcast going. And again, if you don't know what it is basically a podcast about women hooking up and having casual sex. Like, that is what the podcast is about. This is not me exaggerating or straw manning or trying to nitpick. Hey, they did this one show several years ago or they talked about this one thing one time. No, like literally, if you don't believe me, I'm not going to show it right now on the screen, but you can scroll down to their YouTube channel and just look at the past several podcasts that they have done recently right before Kamala Harris. Again, I'm not even like exaggerating or attacking. It is literally a podcast about women having sex. So Kamala showing up how classy and seriously she takes everything in our country right now. And by the way, given that context, take a listen to what Kamala had to say about the audience of the Call Her Daddy podcast.
I'm curious, like, you don't do too many long form interviews. What made you want to do Call Her Daddy today?
Well, I think you and your listeners have really got this thing right, which is one of the best ways to communicate with people is to be real, you know, and to talk about the things that people really care about. I mean, what I love about what you do is that your voice.
The things people really care about. Okay. Like I said, go and look at their recent podcasts and tell me if, this is a serious show that a serious candidate goes on.
And your show is really about your listeners. And I think especially now, this is a moment in the country and in life where people really want to know they're seen and heard and that they're part of a community, that they're not out there alone. And so I'm really glad to be with you.
Well, folks, if you enjoy our content, do us a big favor. Don't subscribe to Call Her Daddy. Be sure to subscribe to this channel down below. Your subscription goes a long way in ensuring we can keep bringing you videos like this. But yeah, that's how Kamala Harris views Call Her Daddy. You know, so important to make sure that people have a community around their sex lives. Take a look at how some liberal pundits defended this appearance. So Brian Stelter, who is, of course, unanimously considered to be one of the biggest clowns in the history of cable television, says so much ugly misogyny on this site today, reacting to Harris going on Call Her Daddy. If the people insulting Harris and slut-shaming Cooper actually listen to the episode, they'll find it's full of personal and political insights, and they'll get why Cooper is filthy rich. Well, Brian Stelter, let me tell you something. The reason that people are saying the things they are about Call Her Daddy is because, as I brought up in the beginning, that is literally what the podcast is about. So, like, if Kamala Harris is going to go on a raunchy sex podcast, like, that is literally what it is, don't get mad when people objectively point out Kamala Harris just went on a sex podcast. Like, and look, in total fairness to Brian Stelter, I will give Kamala some credit, believe it or not, which is that I do understand the political calculus behind her going on this show. I know, shocker, right? Because it is true. I do understand the logic, believe it or not. That demographic of 18 to 24-year-old women who enjoy this type of content are going to be heavy voters on the issue of abortion and obviously voting for Kamala Harris. So, you know, that makes total and perfect sense to me. But at the same time, okay, don't get surprised when other people in the world point out This is a podcast about sex. Kamala Harris just went on a sex podcast. And of course, I think the very worst aspect of this entire thing is the timing. Not only did she just go on Call Her Daddy, she decided to go last Tuesday, right after Hurricane Helene had just hit those areas of North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee. Many people were struggling without power. Everyone was asking the big question, where is Kamala Harris? Well, on Monday, instead of visiting the disaster zones, she was in San Francisco for a liberal fundraiser. And then on Tuesday, here she is going on Call Her Daddy of all places. And that's why, again, Brian, we're going to point out, yeah, this is not a very good look for her.
People have lost everything. There's nothing here.
We're 9 days post-hurricane, and that was the first FEMA drop I've seen here in the Swannanoa area. I haven't seen a FEMA agent yet. This is all local volunteers from abroad, as far as Washington State, are coming out here to help and pick up the slack that's been left behind from our government.
You know, and President Trump, he's not even in office, but yet he's still getting a Starlink. He's doing his best. He's shaking all the...
Daddy gang, to put it in our TikTok terms, I have seen girls on the street walk up to men and be like, do you know where a tampon goes? Do you know how many tampons we use? Do you even know how, do you know what a X or Y or Z is of a part of our, and they don't know the answer.
I was the first vice president or president to ever in office go to a reproductive health care.
I mean, again, that's what Kamala Harris was doing last Tuesday. That side by side is absolutely just a brutal indictment for so many other voters in this country outside of the demographic that views a show like Call Her Daddy. Now, with that said, I should also point out that this interview largely backfired, or at the very least flopped, because just take a look at these viewership numbers. I'm recording this about 7 hours after it has been posted. It only has 70,000 views, which is, not bad for a normal YouTube video. It's pretty good. But considering you have the vice president on a major podcast, a very famous podcast, I'm being told it's the largest one in the world for 18 to 24-year-old woman. Well, only 70,000 views, but look at this ratio. It has 2,800 likes to 4,300 dislikes. That is a 61% dislike ratio, and there are more comments than likes itself. And you scroll down here to the comments, I'll read some of them for you. Couple of examples. People in North Carolina are dying right now, and she's on this podcast. This was filmed when the disaster first striked. WTF, man. Trump has said multiple times he's already going to leave abortion up to the states. He said, what's so effing hard to just listen to him instead of people lying on him? How much did she pay you for this? The 2024 version of the Biden and Cardi B interview. That one is pretty funny. I really like that. So yeah, general reaction so far, not very positive, okay, amongst the Call Her Daddy comment section. And a lot of these people are pointing out some of these stupid things that Kamala and the host here said on this interview, such as this moment right here.
And I want to pose this question more to you and the Daddy gang, but one of the biggest conversations in this year's election revolves around a woman's body.
Yep.
I want to take a moment and can we try to think of any law that gives the government the power to make a decision.
I know what you're going to ask.
About a man's body.
No.
Is there any law?
No. No. Look, we are a work in progress. But here's one of the many things I sold.
Okay, here's just one example. Ever heard of the selective service? Ever heard of the draft? You know, that one thing that women do not have to sign up for that men are automatically enrolled in nowadays, like they're forced to do. It's mandated by federal law. That is literally an instance of the government telling men in this country what they can and can't do, controlling the free will of her own bodies. And we know obviously that Kamala Harris is probably a big fan of the draft because she is very dead set on bringing back World War III. She is endorsed by major neocons like Dick Cheney that want to go to war with the entire world. And most of that Bush-era Republican Party is now in her camp. We know exactly where her loyalties lie. It's not a surprise, but it is worth pointing out, totally ignored that fact. dingus. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, though, let me know your thoughts on Kamala Harris on Call Her Daddy. I doubt that anyone did. I'll be honest, I did not even watch the full podcast because why would you? Okay, why would anyone? But if you did, let me know your thoughts on that podcast in the comment section down below. Our prayers continue to be out with the people of North Carolina and Hurricane Helene. And we certainly also pray for a new president that will not act like this in the wake of disaster relief. But with that said, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to support our work. And until next time, God bless and peace.